Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Virtual Executive Director Podcast. My name is Becky Caldwell, and I'm your host. I'm an executive coach for creative souls, and I can hardly wait to bring you this week's episode. Here we are, sliding into the back half of 2020, and I am finally ready to announce my new coaching program for creators. It's called The Labyrinth. This is a program specifically for creators, creative entrepreneurs, and creative souls. This is a one-on-one program, so it's you and me directly for a minimum of 3 months. I use the mantra of the labyrinth, which is release, receive, return, to guide our sessions. So far, my most successful clients have come to me when they are building or birthing something new, and they need to shed old habits, old beliefs, old thought patterns in order to fully realize their new creation. If this sounds like you, fill out the application linked here in the show notes. And if I think we're a good fit, I'll contact you to schedule a quick call. And guys, don't worry about the call. It's not a high-pressure sales situation because I'm the one interviewing you. Before I launch into everything about this week's podcast, I want to issue a bit of a trigger warning. This week we're going to be talking about suicide and suicide prevention. And so if you are wrestling yourself with thoughts of suicide, with a mental health crisis, with feelings of hopelessness and sadness and depression, and you need help right now, please call the Suicide Prevention Lifeline. That number is 800-273-TALK or 273-8255. Or if you'd rather not call, you can visit them online. They have a chat function on their website, and that is suicidepreventionlifeline.org. They are a fellow nonprofit. So if that describes you, stop this podcast right now and give them a call. Okay, moving on with the show. I have been listening lately to Malcolm Gladwell's newish book called Talking to Strangers, and it's not what you think it is. It is not, in fact, a book about how to be more extroverted or how to work a room. Oh no, it is about how we misinterpret a stranger's intentions, sometimes with even deadly results. So I highly recommend it. It is a fascinating book, and I love the way that he did the audiobook. The audiobook is a lot like listening to a podcast where he, if he quoted a person and he could get them saying their own words, he put it into the audiobook that way. He has actual audio from YouTube videos and from like news reports, and it is an amazing production just in and of itself. So highly recommend it. Malcolm Gladwell's book, and I'll have a link to it in the show notes. So Talking to Strangers. Something that Gladwell talks about throughout the book is this idea of coupling. Coupling is the concept that behaviors are linked to specific circumstances. In particular, when it comes to suicide and suicide prevention, he talks about several different types of case studies regarding how coupling may have impacted a suicide rate. I'm going to quote him directly from an interview he did while he was promoting the book. He said, "In my writing, I keep coming back to how important context is in understanding behavior. I am baffled as to why this is hard for people to understand in regards to suicide. The incidence of suicide is a product of intention in combination with context. In 1962, when Sylvia Plath killed herself, like 44% of the other suicides in England and Wales that year, she used the lethal gas in her oven. By the time that gas was fully changed over to natural gas in 1977, the number of suicides, not just suicide by gas, had plummeted." Richard Seiden's follow-up of 515 people who had been stopped from jumping off the Golden Gate Bridge between 1937 and 1978 found only 25 had gone on to kill themselves by other means. And if suicide is coupled in that way, what else is? To hear the full theory and research behind this, get the book. Trust me, it is so fascinating. So that means, let's take the Golden Gate Bridge, for example. Less than 5% of the people who had intended to kill themselves, less than 5% actually went on to find another way to do it. Now, how many of us, in our ignorance, or perhaps arrogance, have said or thought, if someone's going to kill themselves, they're going to find a way to do it, no matter what? Well, in a sense, this is true. But apparently, based on the Golden Gate Bridge research, it's only 5% true. What about those other 95% of the people? Okay, bear with me for a minute because I'm going to take you on a little bit of a thought process, a peek inside my brain. So as I'm listening to this, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, if suicide and by extension, suicide prevention, right? If suicide is a combination of intention and then the right context or set of circumstances, what are some circumstances that we can control? So much in the way that, like the Golden Gate Bridge, they erected a suicide barrier, finally, in 2018, by the way. The bridge was finished in 1937. And finally, in 2018, they erected a barrier to keep people from jumping off or from successfully hurling themselves off the bridge and killing themselves. Same with the gas changeover in Great Britain, that when they changed over to natural gas, the worst thing that would happen when you stuck your head in the oven is a headache. So what are some circumstances that those of us who are in these very stressful jobs of nonprofit and mission-driven leadership, what are some circumstances that we could at least control? You know, I can't reach through your speakers or your earbuds and help you with your mental health. I am not equipped or trained for that. But I can do something about some other circumstances. And what is the biggest circumstance for those of us in leadership? In my opinion, it is loneliness. Loneliness. We are in a very lonely position here as leaders. Now, I love leadership. I love holding the big picture and sharing the vision and all those wonderful things that come with being the leader of an organization. I mean, mentoring people and helping a whole movement succeed. But it does come with a price, and that price is loneliness. That's the price I pay for being in a leadership position. Now, I did look up some research on loneliness because, like I said, I'm not a mental health expert. I just live in this world the way all of us do. And I found some research put out by University of Chicago. I'm going to share with you a few things about loneliness. This is the toll that loneliness is taking on us. Number one, living alone increases the risk of suicide. Lonely individuals report higher levels of perceived stress, even when exposed to the same stressors as non-lonely people, and even when they are relaxing. The social interaction lonely people do have is not as positive as those of other people. Hence, the relationships they have do not buffer them from stress as relationships normally do. Loneliness raises levels of circulating stress hormones and levels of blood pressure. It destroys the quality of sleep so that sleep is less restorative, both physically and psychologically. So these are just a few things about loneliness. And I am not personally I feel like I need to just put this out there right now. I'm not a lonely person. I do not feel lonely. But I know that there are I have moments of loneliness for sure. And there may be others out there listening. It may be you who actually does feel really lonely. Like you're the only one carrying the burden that you're carrying. So processing through this book and thinking about loneliness in our industry in particular led me back to TEDx Hickory and Dennis Gillan's talk called Dying Alone. And he opens the talk by saying he doesn't want to die alone, but he also really doesn't want to live alone. So how can we live a more connected life? Dennis speaks all over the world about suicide prevention and shares his own story of how he has lost not one, but two brothers to suicide. In this interview, Dennis and I talk about what we as nonprofit leaders can do to recognize the signs in our employees, what we can do to take care of ourselves so that we can be there for our organizations that need us, not just our organizations though, but obviously our families and our friends and our community. But we have that added burden of not just being in this world for ourselves and our families. We have a big job to do too. And it's important we all be at our best. So Dennis and I talk about self-care, and then he shares a little bit of information about a foundation that he is starting. So here's my interview with Dennis Gillan. To get us started.
Sure. Becky, and I've done a couple of these leadership seminars, entrepreneurs, your nonprofit executives. You're right. It does get lonely at the top. Sometimes there's nowhere to turn. So we're going to focus on, I guess, the mental health aspect. I'm in the suicide prevention world. And the more we talk about mental health, we go upstream and connectivity, what we talked about at TEDx Hickory and all that stuff is the need for connection. So people don't come down to where I reside. I reside in the suicide prevention world, having lost not one, but two brothers to suicide 11 years apart. I'm one of 5 kids, and I lost my older brother, Mark, in 83. And then 11 years later, I lost my younger brother, Matthew, both to suicide. So we do not make light of it. There are people hurting. In America last year, we lost about 47,000 plus to suicide. And the way we are all, I think, tweaked up these days, I think that number will go up. I'm optimistic. I'm in this fight. I sell hope and social connection. That's what I sell these days, trying to get people to talk about this stuff. But my gut tells me that we're heading in the wrong direction. Every age group, every demographic we measure in suicide prevention seems to be heading north. And what we need to do is talk like this podcast and head those numbers south. Mm-hmm. One is too many. 47,000 is ridiculous. And 2 in the same family, I could tell you, it wrecked us. It wrecked us pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, so as a middle child, how did those two moments affect you? Did they affect you the same, or was it different based on your age and sort of relative position in the family?
Becky, great question. It affected me totally different. It's like the tale of two cities. When Mark died, 1983, I was just turned 20. I was turning 21. Yeah. So I was 20 years old. The drinking age was 18. And I took full advantage of that and try to drink away the pain. And that, you think about some real leadership, sometimes leaders and executives, if something's going on, we'll try to mask it and hide it and maybe have a negative coping skill. So I employed a really negative coping skill, drugs, alcohol, you name it, I did it. And it didn't work out so well because while I was doing it, trying to mask the pain that was Mark, my younger brother Matthew was doing it as well. And we never checked in on each other. And 11 years later, we lost Matthew. Now, fast forward, 83, 94, I'm now, 30, 31 in a different place. And I got drunk the night before Matthew's funeral. I'll tell you that. I got hammered. But the next day I woke up and said, I got to make a decision after the funeral about my life. And I'm happy to report that I've been sober ever since. I haven't touched the stuff. So this year it'll be 26 years sober. That was a good decision.
Mm-hmm.
The second really good decision I made after Matthew's death, and these are the positive coping skills, sobriety, and then I went and saw a professional. And that's what I would recommend to your executives and leaders. If you need that neutral third party, go see a psychologist, psychiatrist. I am not one. I was a business major in school, accounting. I was always in sales my entire life. I'm not, I just want to make that disclaimer right now. I'm not a psychiatrist, but I'm a big fan of them. And that's what I use my employee assistance program. Then I was working for a big pharmaceutical company, and they got money to have all these programs. Sometimes, and I remember I work for nonprofits too. We don't have all that money to do all this extra fancy stuff like, employee assistance programs. Just to tell you how much I think about the professional mental health field, I've had really good insurance where my company paid for it, and I've had lousy insurance or no insurance where I paid for it. I believe in it so much, I wrote a check to go see my therapist.
Yeah.
That, I put your money where your mouth is. I'm a big fan. You can rationalize anything in life. I said, well, all the money I'm saving from not drinking, I can afford therapy. If you think harder, you think long and hard about it, you can rationalize it. And that's
exactly.
what I did. And I still go see someone to this day. I have somebody on retainer. When things hit the fan, I go see her. And it's not the be all end all. I kind of explain this for your listeners who've never been to therapy. It's like, not all my problems don't all disappear. They're still there when I walk out of the office, but they have an order to them. And that helps a lot. Like, sometimes I think I should be doing this. And the therapist looking, no, maybe try this one first. We'll get to that later. And it helps to have that professional opinion saying, this is where I think we should go.
Yeah.
So,
what are some other coping skills? So, I mean, if we're like sitting in an office and feeling like we're losing it, what can we do?
Move. Get up and move. I'm a big fan of hiking. That's my coping skill. Where we live, I'm in the foothills of South Carolina. You're in you're in Virginia, right?
Yeah, in the Appalachian.
Yeah, and you're not too far and all our listeners are not too far from a hiking trail. Yeah. When I get out in nature, I feel small, and I need to feel small. I need to get out of my head. Sometimes my head's not a good place to be, so I will leave the phone behind, and I've been doing a really good job lately. I've been going places. Like last night, I went to a wedding, and I left the phone in the car.
Oh, my gosh.
Everybody, it was awesome.
What's it like?
It was awesome. Everybody knew where I was. And I said, wow, if I can't peel away for 3-4 hours to go dance and celebrate, a marriage, the world will keep rotating. It was awesome. One time at the wedding, though, the person I was with, they went to go get something, and I felt myself reaching in my pocket because I was on a table by myself. Like, hold on, go talk to someone. I didn't have it. So old habits die hard, but I did reach for it, and it wasn't there. I was like, oh, it's in the car.
Yeah.
But it was great. So all those things are positive coping skills. A lot of people do journaling, exercise. If we could put that in a pill, we'd all be better.
Yeah.
I talk about it, but I don't do much of it. I could do more. Anything to get out of your head. And then positive coping skills. People like to read. They'll just disappear in a book. Good for you. Go. Journaling, as I said, people write down their emotions. They get mindful. Mindfulness is the hot buzz now. Mm-hmm. Be aware of where you are in your surroundings. Yoga, meditate, whatever you do. And then in the end, what you got to do is train that inner voice of yours. We all have it. To be a little kinder to us. We're our own toughest critics. You know that. All your executives. Yeah. If any of your execs, make a mistake and they're listening, they know they are harder on themselves than anybody would ever be. Mm-hmm. One of the best advice I heard in this journey I'm on to help, I'm selling hope and social connection for people. One person said, Dennis, treat yourself like a child. If your child fell down, you would go over there, pick him up, kiss his knee, blah, blah, blah. You okay? You got this. You can do it. You can walk. Treat yourself like a child. So when you trip and stumble and fall in your professional, personal life, treat yourself like a child. Tell yourself positive things. All right, that wasn't your finest moment. You're better than that. You've got this. You've got this. Exactly what you would tell a friend. Exactly what you tell a loved one. Tell that to yourself. Mm-hmm. And ever since I heard that advice, I started that in my head. I'm like, all right, come on, Dennis. That wasn't your best move. You got better ones. Come on. Think through it. See the big picture. You got this. And confidence concept, just trying to pump myself up. Granted, I'm still really hard on myself, and we all are. Everybody listening is their own worst critic. Fact.
Yes. And then there's that hater's math too, right? Where you do 100 things right and super well. And then that one thing comes along, or someone's like, you could have done blah, 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 or you should have done da, 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 or whatever it is. And the one thing just wrecks your day or your week or your, whatever your period of time is. How do you sort of build that shield around your self-esteem?
I'm a big fan of quotes, and I always have to. My sister one time came over to visit me, and she goes, "Wow, you got a lot of positive messages around your desk. Are you okay?" She was worried about me. Like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine. I need that to pump myself up. I need visuals. I need to see it in front of me. And the one that when you were speaking, that popped in my head was, Eleanor Roosevelt. Nobody can make you feel inferior without your permission. Mm. And I don't give those people permission. I'm sitting there trying to wreck me for the one thing I do wrong. In my head, I'm going, all right, you have no permission to ruin the rest of my day. I'm not giving it to you. I'll give you your 10-minute little rant. I'll give you that. So when you walk into this room, I'm going to go about my day.
Yeah.
Like people, think about it. You're on the highway, somebody cuts you off 5, 6, 7 miles. You're still furious with the guy. He doesn't even think about you. He doesn't even know you exist, and he just cut you off. Like, why do we give that guy that right to ruin our morning? And same thing in your professional life. Why do you give people that? I don't give you the right. You do not have the permission to make me feel bad. Sorry.
Yeah.
It's mine.
It's like they're living rent-free in your head.
Exactly. That's a great way of putting it. Start paying rent.
Yeah. So, okay, going back to when you lost your second brother and realized that you needed to do something different. Were you still working full-time for the pharmaceutical company?
Yeah, and they were very good to me, and hopefully all your nonprofit folks are pretty good at each other. They gave me a lot of time to get my act together. Mm-hmm. They were very, very gracious. I said, all right, when you're ready, come back. And, I took 2 weeks off just to get my head out of my rear end. And I slowly came back, and they were just very patient. It's amazing how people will rally for you if you're down and out. And we would do the same for others. Everyone listening, we love to help. We don't like to ask for help, but we love to, we love to help. So a lot of folks helped me, just saying, hey, we got your job, just come back when you're ready. So I was very fortunate. I was working for a large pharmaceutical company that said, whenever you're ready, come back. And I came back when I thought I was ready. About 2 weeks later, I came back all right, I think I'm ready.
Yeah. And how long are you still with them, or have you gone to speaking?
I've gone speaking. It's funny you said that because I've always been sales. I was trying other things. I was selling for this one company, and I was speaking at night about suicide prevention, and I wasn't giving either one of them my best shot because I was tired from work and then going to speak, and then I was tired from speaking and then going to work. And then one day I said, I'm going to give this a go. And it's about 2 or 3, it was 3 years ago. So I'm in my third year. I'm still nervous about it, but I made this my full-time endeavor. And every time I think about quitting, and I think about it all the time. It's a financial crunch. I'm in business for myself, and I don't have to talk about financial crunch to nonprofits, do I? Right? We all know
right. That's where we all live.
Yeah, you keep up at night. You're like, where's the next dollar coming from?
Yeah,
And
like
every
here,
time I
save the
think,
world with $5 and a paperclip. Solve
exactly,
world hunger.
exactly.
Okay.
Go ahead, wipe it out. Wipe out homelessness. Here's $10. All right,
Yep.
got it. So I had this folder, and every one of your nonprofit executives should keep like all your thank you notes and all the people you touch and all the in a folder. And this is a really good tip. I have a
Yes.
folder. It's right over there.
I
And when
do
I feel like
too. It's
quitting,
like right there. I have one too.
I open it up and they say, here's classic, my mental health talk. Here's a classic, like 90% of my mental health talk compliments start off like this. Dear Mr. Gillan, I didn't want to come to your talk. Okay, yeah, I didn't want to give it. Here, we're even.
Right.
And then they go, but after I sat there and listened to what you said, I want to, thank you for what you do. And I know your executives have these thank you cards somewhere. You're right.
Mm-hmm.
Assemble them, put them in a binder. You're having one of those days, pop it open. Might be
Yes.
someone you touched 2 or 3 years ago. Hey, Mr. Gillan, you made me feel normal again. That was one of the responses I got. You made me feel normal again. And then when I
Oh.
think about quitting, I read that and I go, you know what? We'll get another one.
Mm-hmm.
And then you make another phone call.
Yep. Exactly. So we are really bad at asking for help. I mean, really bad. I mean, not so much when it comes to our organization, but for ourselves, we are really bad at asking for help. So can you give us any ideas or tips or like how can we do that? How can we get better at that?
No, it's funny. You and I were at TEDx Hickory. We heard about a woman who said how to use social media for good. Jen Horberstadt. Remember, she had that whole beautiful talk. I
Oh,
hope I
I
said her
don't
last
because
name
she was right
correctly.
before me. I didn't get to hear hers.
So you were in the hallway. That's how it
Yeah.
works. For your listeners, TEDx, if you're on deck, you're in the hallway. What her general proposal was, let's use social media for good. And lately, what I've been doing for social media, I go out there and I crowdsource some ideas. Like, and again, back to your execs and our audience,
Yeah.
I will go out there and say, hey, guys, what would you do with this? And I'm thinking about becoming a nonprofit myself for a foundation, So I said, I'm struggling with the name. You guys know my story, my two brothers. What would you do? And I throw it out there. I get this response. So I'm literally going out to this crowdsource asking for help. I would encourage people to figure out a good venue for that. These people that are rooting for you. I bet you all your nonprofits, Becky, have some kind of association or group or listserv or something.
Mm-hmm.
I'm constantly going out and crowdsourcing. What would you guys do here? And I get these wonderful ideas because I think my ideas are awesome. Then I read someone else like, oh my gosh, I never even thought of that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Is it a word? That's awesomer.
Yeah.
Wow. I wasn't even thinking that way. Perfect. Literally, I put out the other day on what would you name it? Knowing about my brothers, what would you name what I'm doing? And these wonderful responses came. And it was really cool to see.
Yeah. So can you tell us what it was?
People were always hovering on my brothers and all this. And I think the one I'm leaning towards, in my talk, I have this, I recite this Swedish proverb. I put it up and it's in Swedish and it makes no sense when it's in Swedish, but then I translate it. It goes, a shared joy is a double joy. A shared sorrow is half a sorrow. And I talk about how I share my sorrow with my brothers and I cut it in half and half. Will I ever get to zero? No. I'll always have something. That means my brothers were significant to me. So I think I'm leaning towards Half a Sorrow Foundation.
I love it.
Yeah. Somebody popped that in there. Because everybody was going, two brothers, two sorrow. And someone came up with that one. I'm like, son of a gun. That's it. That's often in my feedback, often people will recite that. And that's, an old saying. It just took me 50 years to hear it. A shared joy is a double joy, a shared sorrow is half a sorrow. People will come up to me and say that to me when they have to hear me. I love that. Where'd you get it? Oh, it's about 1,000 years old. I didn't make it up.
Yeah. I love that we're living in an age where we can take so much advantage of other people's expertise and learn from so many other people's mistakes.
That is it. And we all think we've done it before. We're all trailblazers. Every one of your listeners, like, I'm the first one who's ever done this. I always say to people, like when I would think about my grief struggle, I say, I need to look down because I'm on a trail. There's a trail there for a reason. People were there before me.
Yeah.
There's probably footprints. There's footprints where I'm walking. And then if I look behind me, there's people behind me. There's a lot of people on a similar journey. Link up with them. I'm sure in your industry, mentors are a big help. If you have a good mentor, like what would you do here outside the business? I would take full advantage of that.
Yeah. I mean, when things come up, it does feel like a fresh hell, but someone has dealt with it before. And like for us, we have an executive directors group on Facebook, a closed
Perfect.
private, where like whatever crazy thing that just happened, you can pop in at any time of the day, and someone, because we're global, like we have people from literally all over the world who are members, and someone's awake and can help you and has probably dealt
Oh,
with that thing
absolutely.
too.
Yeah,
So
we always think in my talk, I talk about we always think we're on the island of misfit toys, out all by ourselves. And then you look
yep.
around, there's other toys there. You
Yes.
know, there's a choo-choo with square wheels, there's a water pistol that squirts jelly. We're all different,
Yep.
but they're there, you're not alone. So use all
Exactly.
the brains around you.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about isolation. How can we? I don't know. Well, okay. What have you learned about the effects of isolation on a person?
Well,
I'm
and
thinking back
it
to
was
your
a focus.
talk.
Yeah, it was my focus of the TED Talk. I didn't want to go over my brothers all the time. I literally watched a Japanese. I was being very truthful in that talk. But prior to that talk, I watched a Japanese documentary called "Dying Alone," where they say 3 Japanese men an hour die alone, and they don't find them for like 7 to 10 days because no one's checking on them. It's terrible. So I'm sitting there going, I don't want to die alone, And then I think the revelation was, I really don't want to live alone.
Mm.
That's what I really don't want to do. If I die, I die, but I don't want to live alone. So I started putting these strategies in place. One thing happened, it was recently, I went through another life event. In addition to brothers, I went through a divorce. And I'm like, wow, that's like a death. And I moved. You always try to run away from your troubles. That was a dumb idea because I moved to a place where I didn't have any friends. And I had a good support group where I left, but I just had to get out of town. I was like, I ain't got to get my head straight. And I joined a hiking club. Remember, I like to hike,
Oh yeah.
but I didn't know anybody. And this is really hard to do, folks. I joined on Meetup. It was like one of those social media for good. It's like a club, and that's where they posted all the hikes on there. And I found one I liked. I said I signed up. They only take 15 people. I signed up. I'm like number 14, and then I had to go to this parking lot, get out of my car, and go see the leader. His name was Dale, and say, "Hi, I'm Dennis. Can I go hiking with you guys today?" And they go, "Oh yeah, you're." And I got in someone else's car, and we drove to the trailhead. And it was work. I'm telling you, it was work. I was dreading it. I thought about blowing it off. I don't even know these people. About an hour in, I'm like, that was the smartest thing I ever did. We're in the woods in western North Carolina, hiking around, and I'm out of my head.
Yeah.
And I left the house at 8 o'clock. I got home at 5 o'clock, and I slept like a champ that day. So it's work.
Great. Yeah.
Combating loneliness is work. And I think when you and I saw each other in TEDx Hickory, I went over the 10 things that I read in that article about from U.S. News and World Report about how to combat loneliness. A lot of them was, it's on us. It really is on the person who's lonely to get up and do something. That's really hard. It is for the introverts and extroverts. It's just hard. And I'm sort of extroverted. It was really hard to get out of the car and go, "Hi, I know none of you, and I'm about to go in the woods with you." It sounds like a murder mystery. Like I'm about to go in the woods with you guys for 8 hours. Will I come back? And they were awesome. So it's putting yourself out there.
Yeah.
And that's hard.
I'm thinking too of all of the people I know who are introverted. I mean, it's hard enough. I'm an extrovert too. So like that is hard enough. It is hard for an extrovert to walk up to a bunch of strangers and say, "Hey, I'm here to join you for a thing all day." But for an introvert, I don't even know what to say. I mean, you almost have to be more afraid of being alone or being lonely than you are afraid of walking up to a group of people.
Through pain comes change. Yeah. If the loneliness is causing you pain, like, I got to do something. Introverts run the world, by the way. There's the quiet leaders out there. They do. They're wonderful. It is tough. It could trigger some anxiety trying to do some of the stuff. One little thing I did, I talked about it, and I started doing this too. It was one of the tips was walk interactively. And when I say walk interactively, a lot of people walk looking at their phones, and that's an introvert. I mean, sometimes I am introverted. I am extroverted most of the time, but sometimes I'll escape in my phone. I started walking around town. I live in Greenville, South Carolina, without my phone in my hand and looking at people and saying hi and hello. And I get the weirdest looks, but I'm like, That was one of the tips. Walk interactively. We've all seen those videos of people walking, on their phones, walking into fountains, walking off cliffs, looking at their phone, and walking into traffic. So I started doing that. Little things like that, like just walk and look around.
Yeah.
Don't look at the screen. And the screen is an escape hatch. It's right here. It's an escape hatch for many of us.
Mm-hmm.
So
do you remember? Do you remember any of those other tips for combating loneliness?
Yeah, one of them was. Remember we talked about you're willing to help other people. One of them was check on somebody you think is lonely. So an introvert can check on another introvert. So, and we have nursing homes where warehouses for lonely people. Just check on somebody that you think is lonely. The other one was take a class. Remember that was number 6, was take a class. When I moved after the divorce, I signed up for improv classes.
Oh, and yeah.
It was totally weird. It was totally awesome. And it was a nice little class. Some of my classmates have graduated. They're actually in troops now, whatever. But I had a pastor in there. I had a lawyer in there. I had these 2 twins that were in high school, these guys. There was a girl who worked in the news media. There was a florist. It was a collection of people. And that was number 6, take a class.
Yeah.
And one of the things, the combat loneliness was seek professional help if you're stuck. Remember that was what we talked about earlier. If you get stuck, and number 8 was see a therapist.
Yeah, I know in where I live in our area, there is a therapy group where you pay like a membership fee, and then it's like $15 a visit anytime you come back to it. So that's surely awesome. We can't be the only place in the world that has that. So if anyone's dealing with a need for therapy and lack of budget for it, ask around and see if that's a thing in your area.
That's awesome, because we talked about $15. I was at $90 a pop, and I was paying cash. And I gladly paid it because I know my mental health is just as important as my physical health. But there was going to come a day when that cash ran out.
Yeah, exactly. Well, like I'm thinking, I pay that much for a gym membership every month, and I could or I could, they both have mental health benefits.
They do. If you could do both, great. And actually, the one tip that I was thinking about that was really help us all was volunteering. If you volunteer for something, it helps you mentally.
Yeah.
And both introverts and extroverts. Listen, you could be an introvert. They're going to hand you a paintbrush and go, listen, just paint this wall. You don't have to talk to anyone. I could paint a wall. And we've all done that. You volunteer and the day comes like, oh, I don't want, is that today?
Yes.
You have to do it. Like, I signed up and it's raining. But you go and then you come back and you feel so much better for going. We've all been there.
Exactly.
There's some mental health benefits. That was number 10. Volunteer for something.
Yeah.
And again, back to that social component. I think about the introverts, extroverts, and everyone has a place in this world. That app called Meetup, they have photography classes on there. They have, you name it, the hiking group was on there. I'm sure there's a group for introverts on there. Let's meet at the back entrance of the library, talk about a book club, whatever it is you do, there's something and you're not alone.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and I'm sure there's a group there for nonprofit executives somewhere.
Probably.
Facebook. Oh, yeah, your Facebook group.
Yeah. Shout out to my group, Executive Director Mastermind. Everyone, we've seen a sharp increase in membership. I guess everyone's kind of evaluating their goals for the year and looking for ways to get better at what they do. And so they're starting to find us. So it sounds like the biggest way to combat the loneliness of leadership is to build connections and get outside of yourself in some way. So whether that's nature, whether it's therapy to kind of get yourself out of your own head, whether it's groups of people and volunteering. I set a goal, not a goal. I had like a list of the 19 things for 2019 I wanted to do. And one of them was to volunteer for an organization that's not mine. And
oh, cool.
So I want to put that out there to nonprofit folks. Like, go volunteer for an organization that is not yours, because we volunteer a lot at our own organizations, and that can get tedious, and it's just feels like you never stop working. But go spend a day at Habitat for Humanity building a house, or like selling tickets at an event, or literally, anything else, cleaning up a park, whatever. It's fun to, not fun. I mean, it is fun, but it's informative to see how other organizations do it, and it just kind of helps you get out of your own head and feel better.
That's a great suggestion, because you go from like executive director of one organization to the wonderful volunteer of another one.
Yes.
And you get to see the perspective, like now that you're working for another executive director or volunteering, and see how they do it. And especially if it's something you care about. Like, we all have our kids. I just wrote a blog about pick one thing. And this year I challenged myself, obviously I'm suicide prevention, but pick one thing and go for it. So that's what I would say to your folks. If you're an executive director for a cause and you care about it, but there's another cause that's tugging at your heartstrings, go volunteer for them.
Yeah.
And you get that bottom up view, and like, wow.
Yeah. And you're not in charge. Like there's a certain
liberty. They tell you what to do.
in doing, yeah, exactly. Going somewhere and not being the one in charge.
Paint that wall. Got it.
On Check. It.
Yeah. Simple.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great
you can turn
tip.
turn that switch off for an afternoon, and it can be really liberating.
Exactly.
Yeah. I was talking with someone earlier today, doing another interview with an improv teacher named Jonathan Pitts, and he's been traveling the world and teaching and performing improv after a full long career in Chicago. He has gone traveling for almost 2 years straight all over the world.
Wow.
And we were talking about belonging. So the hot word right now in basically anything is inclusion. So diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I have been kind of flipping that around and saying, inclusion means that you were excluded. And now here we are benevolently opening our doors and allowing you in. Well, that's kind of crappy, So I prefer to look at it as belonging. Like you always belonged here, and we were just horrible at letting you know and welcoming you. And it's interesting that you talked about walking. This is like my long rambling way of getting around to it. You mentioned going out for a walk, and he said that when he's in a new city and he finally feels like he belongs there, he feels much more comfortable walking around the city versus taking an Uber or cab or something like that. And that's
a great way of putting it.
Yeah. Because like you walk and you have a whole different pace of experience with a place.
And you walk interactively, you're looking around, you're feeling it, you belong.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting you were talking about belonging, or you haven't found your tribe yet, and maybe the tribe wasn't very opening. But in the end, our lives are not about us. I might be preaching to the choir with all these executive directors and nonprofits. It's the purpose. Why are you on this planet? Are you on this planet? Am I on this planet so I can make a ton of money and retire to Florida, play pickleball? I don't think so. I don't think that's my design.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm here to maybe tell someone that life is worth living. So it's all about, the belonging. When you were talking, I think about the purpose and all this stuff. Find your voice. And again, back to that blog post I put up there, pick one thing and make a difference in it.
Yeah.
Make a huge difference.
Can we speak briefly? So my listeners are all different types of nonprofit organizations. But I know that some of them are specifically suicide prevention. And we had one join just today who runs almost like a rescue home for kids who are pulled out of their homes because of abuse and neglect. So
wow.
Can we talk to those organizations, and specifically the leaders of those organizations, about self-care?
Right when you were talking about this, that popped in my mind was self-care is not selfish. The work they do is brutal. There are days, I one night in my apartment. I had people over, and the phone rang. It was someone that was hurt. It was 8:30 on a Friday night, and they wanted to talk to someone, and it was bad. And I looked at my company, and I just said, "Sorry, this is my life.
Mm-hmm.
It just is." And then I don't want to be on 24/7, but I'm also back to that purpose thing. Like, you know what? This person needs someone to talk to, and I'm here. I can do it. But then there's times I got to turn that phone off and take care of Dennis, because I'm not very good if I'm not very good.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if my mental health. And I actually talked to a guy one time. He wrote a book. I think it was Boy Meets Depression or something like that. He goes, "Dennis, I'm not going to see you for a while. And we're talking about speaking business." I said, "Where are you going?" He goes, "I'm going to go take care of me." And he goes, "Like a month off the grid." I'm like, "Seriously?" He goes, "Yeah, I'll be back." And I thought that was great advice that he gave me inadvertently. I'm like, "Yeah, you got to take care of you."
Yeah.
What, and that's a big part of self-care, and you got to be mindful of it. Like when you start heading south, how good are you to your organization?
Mm-hmm.
How good are you to the people you're helping? Self-care is not selfish. Burn that into your brain.
Do you have any targeted advice for suicide prevention organizations? Like, what are you seeing sort of in the space that people are doing really well and not doing really well?
The thing that people are doing really well, and it's getting better at it. One is recognizing the signs. You know, the talk, behavior, mood. You know, hindsight's 20/20. So if you educate yourself, and you can go anywhere and then look them up online, the warning signs. So if one of your employees starts giving away, like, "Hey, you want my staple?" Like, "Hey, what's that all about?"
Mm-hmm.
We're getting really good about that, and we're getting really good. We're getting better at talking about, again, going upstream, talking about mental health. Like, "Hey, I need a mental health day. Things aren't going so hot." And then the boss usually go, "Yeah, you need to take a mental health day with all you have going on." We're getting better at sharing. We have a long way to go. But I think we are getting better, at raising our hand and saying, "You know what? I'm not in a good spot." Now, for the outside, there's only two people I ever talk to when I do my talk. One is you may be around somebody in a crisis. And the other person is, and it may be you. You may be the one. I was doing fine until the phone rang, and I lost Mark. And then I thought I recovered from that, and the phone rang again. And when Matt died, I really went south. I really went down hard. And it was me. I went from one bucket, looking out for others, to the bucket I'm in. Like, wow, it's me. People need to look out for me now, which is really hard to say. But be able to raise your hand and say, "It's me." We're always working, again, back to the helping others. We're really good at that, but be ready to raise your hand and say, "I'm the one who needs the help right now." And then what we're getting good about too, Becky, one other thing I'll add to that, we're getting better at saying the word suicide.
Yeah.
Years ago, we wouldn't even say the S word. And a lot of the training that's out there, and I'm trained on this thing called question, persuade, refer, is don't be afraid to say that to somebody. Are you suicidal? And be ready for the answer.
Yeah.
It's a hard thing to say because people will dance around it. I've seen this. "Are you thinking about going to sleep and never waking up?" And we go, "Whoa, say it."
Yeah.
You know what you're thinking. Say it. Say, "Are you suicidal?" And then be quiet and wait for the answer. So we're getting better at that. I have a lot of faith in the younger generation. It's funny because when I do my talk, I'm having trouble getting people my age. I'm 56 and 44 and over. The suicide rates are really high. And I can't figure out how to get those people in the room to talk about this. I don't know. It's a midlife thing. Anyone in transition, 44 to 54, gosh, males, it's off the chart. The national average is like 14.1. They're at like 19.1 or 20. They're high.
Gosh.
Per 100,000. Yeah, that's how we measure. We measure per 100,000. So we hear a lot about the kids, the young folks, and that breaks your heart. But they're right about where the national average is. It's these older folks, so 44, 54, higher. And I really have trouble getting those folks in a room. I can get the kids in a room. Some of it's mandatory or they want to come. I spoke at one school. And normally my talk is mandatory. You have to come. And they dread it. And I love walking in an audience. They always have their arms folded. I'm like, Here we go, boys. I love it. I absolutely love it. Like, let's go. We're going to talk about this. You have to be here. If you can't get out of it, get into it. One school I went to up in Long Island, Hofstra University, this kid said to me, he goes, "Sir, I didn't make you talk mandatory. I want people to show up that want to talk about mental health." And I'm an older guy. I'm 56. I'm sitting there going, "All right, nobody's going to show up. I'm going to do my talk tonight to 4 people." He goes, No, we publicize, but I think people want to talk about this." We had a classroom that held 220 kids. We had people sitting in the aisles. We probably had 230,
Wow.
240, 250. We were over what the fire code would let us, but we didn't tell anyone. We're like, we got to get through this
Yeah.
talk. I looked over, I'm like, holy miracle, you're right. So I have a lot of faith in the younger generation. They're really getting cool talking about this.
Yeah.
My people, not so much. We have a long way to go. We're getting better.
But do we know
But we have a
why?
long-
Like, is there any inkling as to why that is?
Well, it's one of those taboo subjects. When we grew up, we didn't talk about it at all. When Mark died, my older brother in 83, we really didn't talk about Mark and his death as a family unit. Remember, 5 of us, 5 kids, 2 parents, were 7. We're down to 6. The 6 of us did not talk about Mark, and I think it cost us, Matthew, in my humble opinion.
Yeah.
We didn't go to therapy. Now I think people say, "Wow, something like drastic happens, or there's an attempt, and there's a save, and all this." We're talking about it. Everybody in the room. What just happened? Did anyone need counseling? We swoop in, and we're getting real comfortable about that. The other thing that kills us, the worst thing, Becky, is pride. Oh, pride. Back to our asking for help thing.
Yeah.
The theme of our talk. Pride. I got this. I ain't got this.
Oh, yeah.
We're afraid to ask. And I think as the older folks, especially the male suicides are off the chart. 78% of all suicides are men. Women, you're not off the hook. You have more attempts. So we're all in this together. It's just, we got to work on this, but it's pride. Pride. Oh, it's a killer. In my humble opinion, it's a killer.
Yeah. Wow. Gosh, that really surprises me. Because I would have thought, I'm 49, and I would have thought that, like, I remember in high school, I participated in a suicide prevention conference. Like, that was a thing that we did. My school did.
Wow.
And I'm not that. I mean, I'm not young. Like, that was a while ago. And
that's impressive.
I mean, I don't. Yeah, that's sort of it. It surprises me that it's sort of like my generation, this Gen X, like, that we're not handling things well. Let's just say that we're not handling things well. So I hope that this podcast encourages whoever might be dealing with some junk,
to raise their hand and say,
yeah, exactly. Like, hey, we're here. Like, I'll include links to. I've made notes about like what to link. Like, I'll link the how to recognize the signs, and there's like I know a national suicide prevention number, and
the helpline. Great news about that. Great news. It's 800. It was a 272 talk. 273 talk. 800.
It's in a Logic song. So
yeah, it's in a Logic song. But we're going down to 3 digits. 1-800-273-TALK, 8255. It's going down to 988 in a couple months, year. The FCC just approved it. We've been lobbying for this for years.
Oh,
we got to reduce this number. 800-273-TALK. Yeah, and it's now going to be 988. So that's really good.
Oh my gosh! So like the equivalent of 911, but for suicide prevention.
Yep, just happened this year. They approved it at the FCC, and we've been lobbying for that forever.
Wow.
And it's 1-800-273-8255. You got to dial it. That's a lot to remember if you're in a crisis.
Yeah.
What's the suicide prevention lifeline? 800-273-TALK, 8255. And now we're going to go to 988 when the FCC approves it. It's not official yet, but that's the number they picked.
Okay.
We're about 80% baked. This thing's happening.
Wow.
3-digit number.
That is great. Fantastic. Whew, well done, everybody.
Yay.
Yeah. So you're seeing that it's a problem in Gen X men. Are there any other kind of groups of people that that we should keep an eye out for, pay special attention to?
We could parse the stuff by gender. I've come down with a simple little thing. Anybody in transition.
Oh, okay.
That's my little take on it. Anybody that's, some folks, they get laid off from work. They identified with their job. That's what they're all about. I deal with a lot of kids, moving from middle school to high school, transition, high school to college, transition, college out to the real world, adulting, transition, post-divorce, transition. Anybody in flux, my radar just goes up. I deal with guys, sometimes I share the stage with people who in rehab, and then the poor folks who are battling addiction. If they relapse, I worry about that. They're back in the transition. So anybody that's in flux,
okay,
my radar just goes up. I'm like, ooh, are you okay? We all want routines. We do want guardrails. We want
stability,
structure and stability. And sometimes when life takes that away from you, those people scare me. I also worry about the LGBTQ group, acceptance. Anyone again, if they're transitioning from male, female to male, whatever. Anytime someone's in flux or is in a weird spot in their life, no matter sex, I don't care, age, I really don't care. That's the beautiful thing about mental health advocacy. I don't care. I do care about you, but I don't care about any of that other stuff that tears this nation apart. I just don't care. When I go lobby, I don't care if you're Democrat or Republican. I just care if you care about mental health. It kind of just breaks it down. I just can't. My world is so simple now. It's humans versus the dirt.
Oh,
all humans, all of us. As we say in the South, all y'all. And the dirt,
exactly.
Yeah. In my world, the dirt represents death, and it's a premature death due to suicide. So it's humans versus the dirt. I boiled it down to that very basic thing, and I don't care what kind of human you are. I really don't. It's kind of refreshing. I don't care. I just want you on this side of the dirt.
Yeah.
You may disagree with me politically. You may not even look like me. Good for you, because no one wants to look like me. Just, we may be totally opposite in every aspect of our life, but I want you on this side of the dirt, so I'm rooting for you. And it's so refreshing.
Yes. Oh, Dennis, thank you. I think that's a great place to stop-ish. Is there anything else that you want to make sure people know? Anything we didn't cover?
No, just take care of yourself. I think we talked about self-care is not selfish. We'll link the warning signs. I'll even send you the link for the facts. When you get some data nerds out there.
Okay.
And I love them because I'm not one of them, but I love the fact that these people put this data together. We'll link it because I use data in the talk. Like I need it, but I'm not good at doing it. I'm so glad there's people out there that do it. And we'll put a link to all the data so people want to look at where they are and their age group and their state. We'll on page 2 of it's all by state. It's weird. The Northeast states do pretty good. The states out west don't do so good. There's a whole philosophy about access to lethal means, whatever. It's really cool. So we'll have a lot of information at the bottom of this podcast that I'll send you.
Okay.
The warning signs, the factual data, places to go, some great nonprofits, that help out. So we'll make sure that your executives are well informed and can help their employees, and also be willing to say the employee that needs help is me.
Yes. And you have a foundation that's starting?
Yeah, I am going to start a foundation. What happened there, Becky, is I got a couple phone calls this year where I couldn't go speak because financially we couldn't figure it out. Mental health is like every nonprofit listening. There's not much money in it. I'm not trying to get rich off this, but I got a call from a school in Texas, and the minute we looked at flights, they didn't have the budget. I'm like, so I would love to have a foundation where people give me donations, where a school calls and says, Dennis, we have $100 to our name. Can you come down here? And I could say, you know what? We have scholarships available. Yes, I can. What time and what do I wear? And that's the goal of the foundation, to be able to provide the services for free. And there are corporations that could pay, obviously, if you could pay, but if you can't, I don't want you to miss the message either. And one of my favorite places to go is I speak at this homeless shelter, and they need to hear the message just as much as, the construction industry guys need to hear it, as much as the college kids need to hear it, So I want to be able to take this message wherever I can. I think the foundation will allow for that.
Great.
I'm hoping.
Yeah. Have you filed yet for your 501c? Whatever.
No, I'm putting it 501c. I think that's what it is. My biggest step this year is I went and got my P.O. box because I had to start having address, and then I told you I crowdsourced the name. I think I got that, and then I will file.
All right. So for those of you listening, Dennis promised he would file by January 15th, which is just a couple days from now, from when this podcast is getting uploaded into the podcast universe. So be sure to check that out and reach out to him and congratulate him on taking that big step of filing so he can form a foundation. If you would like more of Dennis, you can find him at dennisgillan.com, and I will include that link in the show notes. There will be a ton of links in the show notes this week because I want to make sure you have all the resources at your fingertips. So just scroll through the show notes, find what you need, and follow it from there. Thank you so much for listening this week. If you like this podcast, please be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share with a friend. If you don't already, follow me on Instagram at Becky Brett Caldwell for daily inspiration, information, and support. I've started doing daily Labyrinth Oracle card readings to inspire and guide my community. I mean, I may be new to the woo, but it turns out I'm pretty good at this. So of course I want to share it with you. More big changes are coming to the podcast, which I'll announce in August. But for now, enjoy the journey. And remember, you can lose yourself in a maze, but you can find yourself in a labyrinth.